I'll wrap up with just one story. As I was an astronaut and going out and talking to a variety of young audiences, and by the way, I find that middle school is kind of the magic age. They're old enough to understand. For me, it was about space and astronaut stuff, and they were still young enough to be influenced. I had a more difficult time with high school. If you don't catch them by junior high, by the time you get to high school, peer pressure has played a role in terms of determining who thinks science and math is cool and who doesn't. A big shock for me to realize that 30 years after I was in high school that was the situation, but unfortunately that's where we're at. So we're trying to catch them younger, and going out and speaking and outreaching to teachers, educators, and the students was my priority, because that's really where the investment for the strategic goals comes in my view. But I ended up going back to my hometown, and I ended up talking with some folks that I went to high school with. And I don't think I fully appreciated the power of being engaged and encouraged and mentoring until a friend of mine told me, she asked me, she goes, well, you know, you've gone off and done all these great things, and you are basically really taken off on your math and science. And of course we had a wonderful physics teacher, but someone along the way, I didn't know this until this moment, someone along the way told her that she wouldn't be good at chemistry. And she said to me, she goes, you know, I really liked chemistry, but someone told her, one person, you know, probably there were dozens of people that told her, no problem, you can study chemistry if you want to, but somewhere along the way, one person told her she wouldn't be good at it. And that's what she remembered. She remembered that she basically wasn't supposed to really enjoy or be good at chemistry, and so she never followed up, and she always regretted that happening, because she really happened to like chemistry. And there was some bittersweetness to her story as she was telling me this, because now we're 30 years older, and she almost had this fatalistic feeling of, you know, it was too late. And I said, well, it's not too late. Of course, the first thing you need to do is get with your kids, and let's prevent that from happening again for the next generation. But the bottom line is, what really struck home to me is, if you can hit a very fertile mark and do encouragement, but you know, the wrong person says the wrong thing on a different kind of fertile ground, it can have the opposite effect. And that's what I experienced when I heard this story from my high school friend. So ever the more reason, from my perspective, to carpet bomb the environment and do all that we can do in order to encourage these young people. They are absolutely our future. I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with that. We are behind on an international level. I don't think anybody in our future would disagree with that. Clearly, our president has made it an initiative to get out there and try to turn these trends around. He can say that, and he's right to do so, but of course, it's the execution arm at your end that actually makes those aspirations real. And so I'm up here today to tell you to keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. It makes a difference to me, in my view, of what we need for national security. It makes a difference to anybody who would get up here and talk to you about the economy. It makes a difference from the standpoint of America's technological edge, and how that ends up from the space program being a forcing function to grow young people that really push the boundaries on math and science. And what you do truly makes a difference. So with that, I thank you again for everything you've done. I thank the young kids back there for demonstrating that they're not inhibited by their youth to go out and do great things. And of course, their mentors, Larry and Jan, who I know had a big role in making all of that happen. I think at this point, I'll go ahead and thank you for your attention, and I will also take a few questions. I probably have a time for 5 minutes of questions. So thank you very much. Yes, over here.
How can we, as a collaborative group throughout the Central Coast, work with you and Vandenberg, and how do you think Vandenberg might be able to work with us in trying to get STEM education in your local?
Well, that sounds like a tasker for the 3-star. I should have walked in here with the answer to that question. I should have walked in here with a proposal on how it is that the young folks that work for me in the areas of technology, space, and science and math can start to work together in partnership with what is clearly a fairly robust group of people here in Central California that are working the STEM agenda. And I have sat through a couple of meetings with the senior leadership of the Air Force on this topic of STEM. I will tell you that they are sorting through the implementation of how to use the STEM agenda to get out there and build these partnerships, but I don't see anything wrong with perhaps getting ahead of where the Air Force is right now and starting to work that at the local level. All politics is local, if you will, and by that I mean that really when it comes to making things happen, it's going to happen at the local level anyway. So let's get started and take that for action and get a plan together.
Thank you.
Yes, in the back over there.
Well, I would just suggest as a plan of action that maybe the Air Force develop a Air Force Academy Institute for middle schools. And on a very smaller scale, you could send one of your Air Force people to Branch Elementary School to teach their science program.
Okay. I do think that there's goodness in getting some of my younger folks, and by that I mean people in their 30s, their late 20s and 30s, out there to talk with the school students. I will tell you that they will not recognize this up front, but they will get as much out of it as the students do. And that's one thing I learned when I was teaching myself at the Air Force Academy was I got as much out of the experience of teaching as the students, hopefully, got out of the experience of learning. And so, again, we'll work that into the plan.
Question.
In the back, there's a question. Last one, please.
What is your most memorable experience while you were in space?
You know, his question was, what was my most memorable experience while I was in space? There is probably, I'm going to roll it up into one major experience, not any particular moment. I'd flown on the shuttle 4 times, and then my 5th mission was not just to go up and down on the shuttle, but it was to actually go and be deployed to the International Space Station. And the crew that I did that with, there were just 3 of us. There was myself, an Army colonel, I was an Air Force colonel at the time, an Army colonel, and a Russian cosmonaut. And the Russian was in charge of the crew. He was the crew commander, which was an interesting experience for 2 American military colonels to work for a Russian. And the bottom line was we trained together as a crew between Houston and Star City, which is outside of Moscow, for about 4 years. And we became very, very tight, very, very cohesive crew. We worked out all of our coping skills on working with these. We knew we'd have to live together 6 months. That was the plan. And so when we got up there, we had a very, very strong foundation on which to basically take our turn at living in what I would call a microcosm of society on a space outpost. And that's not the same experience as a space shuttle experience. A space shuttle experience, as you can tell from the news right now, it's going up, it's working for a couple of weeks, and it's coming down again. And it is not life. It is something that is an amazing experience, but it's not what I would call a living experience in terms of day-to-day living. Now, on the space station, it's like a sprint. Space station mission is like a marathon. You can't sprint for 6 months. You have to basically get into an entirely different mode of thinking. And the Russians knew this. The Russians have been living in space stations for decades. We were the ones that were new to it. And so we have a joint space station up there right now. And that experience of living on a human outpost that was in a different place than Earth was, I think, the most memorable experience I had in the entire space program. Working on the space shuttle, which I think any of you here would grab if you had the opportunity to grab it. But that experience paled in comparison to the experience of actually living on a space outpost and doing the things that we did in terms of outfitting it, working experiments, being up there day to day, having in effect a microcosm. We all had responsibilities to make that little microcosm of society effective. We had a medical doctor, I was not actually a real medical doctor, but I played one on the space station. Obviously, all three of us could do spacewalks. Obviously, all three of us could do robotics. Obviously, all three of us knew how to work the lifeboat and manage the different survival systems of the space station. Jim became the photographer. You know, in every society you need a photographer that takes pictures, and so he was that person. Yuri became the master of the telephoto lens and took a marvelous picture of the Twin Towers in Manhattan in June of 2001. And we were up there all the way to August of 2001, from March to August of 2001. We needed someone who could manage all the inventory of the stuff that we had up there. We needed someone who had expertise in working fluids. The list goes on and on and on. A plumber, if you will. We needed to have someone who was good at electrician business. And basically the cook, someone who had to be really good at cooking, that was Yuri. We were a little microcosm of society, and between the three of us, we shared all of what you would call the standard responsibilities of what it takes to make a society effective. And that's not really a space shuttle experience. That was something wholly unique. That is a preview of our future. That when we talk about exploring new worlds, you know, the Starship Enterprise, you know, it's not that far off when you think about it as a microcosm of society. That's actually very real. So that's what I remember most about my experiences. So with that, I think that was my final question. And I thank you very much for your attention. On behalf of the Air Force, and on behalf, of course, as a senior leader in the area of STEM, on the STEM agenda, I thank you for everything you've done, and thanks again.
Thank you so much for spending the time with this great group of people. We really appreciate it. And I'd like to give you a little gift there.
Careful it doesn't fall off.
And also, member said congratulations on the Astronaut Hall of Fame. She was originally the National Astronaut Hall of Fame. Very much.
Thank you very much. And again, it was great to meet all of you. I'm sorry I don't have more time, but I know how hard you work. I know what the conditions under which you're trying to make young people wake up and realize how cool this is, and just keep reminding them that they won't get to do cool stuff like this unless they make math and science part of their lives. So I encourage all of you to keep at it. We need those folks. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
That was very exciting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.